He was ridiculed by Hitler's own inner circle, dismissed as a charlatan and a quack. And yet, no doctor ever stood closer to the Fuhrer than Theodor Morell. For nearly a decade, Hitler trusted him with his health, his energy, even his very survival. But when the Third Reich collapsed, the man who had injected Hitler with everything from vitamins to narcotics did not face a trial, nor the gallows. Instead, he met a strange and unexpected end. This is the unbelievable story of Hitler's personal doctor and what became of him after World War II. Theodor Gilbert Morell was born in 1886 in Traes-Munzenberg, Germany. He studied medicine and specialized in dermatology and venereal diseases. Yes, that's right. He started as a skin doctor, not as some great military physician. By the 1920s, he had built up a reputation as a successful doctor in Berlin, treating wealthy patients and high society figures. He was also known for being, well, eccentric. Morell was overweight, sloppy in appearance, and not exactly charismatic. But what he did have was an obsession with alternative medicine, vitamins, and experimental treatments. Fast forward to 1936. Through his social circles, Morell is introduced to Adolf Hitler. Hitler was suffering from stomach cramps and digestive problems at the time. Morell prescribed him a preparation made from bacteria culture called Mutaflor. The treatment worked, at least temporarily, and Hitler was impressed. Impressed enough that by 1937, Theodor Morell was appointed as Hitler's personal physician. From that moment on, Morell's life changed forever. Now here's the important part. Morell didn't just treat Hitler for stomach issues. Over the years, he became a constant presence, often the only man allowed near Hitler during critical moments. He administered injections almost daily. He gave Hitler vitamins, hormones, opiates, stimulants, barbiturates, and even bull semen extract. Yes, you heard that right. Bull semen extract. Historians have debated whether Morell's treatments helped keep Hitler functioning or slowly destroyed his health. Some argue that Morell turned Hitler into a drug addict. One substance in particular stands out: methamphetamine. Known at the time as Pervitin, it was widely used by the German military to keep soldiers awake and alert, and evidence strongly suggests Morell gave it to Hitler during the war. By 1944, Hitler's health was visibly deteriorating. His hands shook constantly, his energy levels fluctuated, and his judgment became erratic. Many of his closest allies blamed Morell for poisoning the Fuhrer, though ironically, Hitler himself remained loyal to him. But let's get to the big question. What happened to this bizarre doctor after the war? When Germany collapsed in April 1945, Morell was inside the Fuhrer bunker in Berlin. He was present in those final chaotic days as Soviet artillery shells crashed down on the city. But unlike Hitler, who chose suicide, Morell managed to slip away. Hitler actually dismissed him from the bunker on April 22nd, claiming he was no longer needed. Some historians believe Hitler simply didn't want his doctor to witness the end, or perhaps even blamed him for his physical decline. Morell was put on a plane out of Berlin, but his escape didn't last long. On April 24th, just 2 days later, he was captured by American forces in Bavaria. He had been trying to reach his home and his private clinic, but the Allies caught him first. Now you might be thinking, surely the Allies would have executed him, right? After all, he was Hitler's personal doctor. But here's where things get interesting. Morell wasn't tried at Nuremberg. He wasn't sentenced to death. He wasn't even convicted of a major crime. Instead, he was interrogated, intensely. Allied investigators were fascinated by his medical practices. They wanted to know what drugs he had given Hitler, how much, and whether Hitler's erratic behavior could be explained by Morell's injections. Picture it, a disheveled, obese man, still sweating and shaking, sitting in front of stern Allied officers, being asked over and over again, "What exactly did you give the Fuhrer?" And Morell answered. He gave detailed statements, listing the dozens of substances he used. Vitamins and glucose injections, methamphetamine in the form of Pervitin, morphine and Eucadil, a strong opioid, cocaine eye drops, even strychnine and atropine in small doses. The Allies were stunned. Here was proof that the most powerful dictator in Europe had been sustained by a cocktail of narcotics. But while the information was valuable, Morell himself was not seen as a major war criminal. He wasn't involved in military decisions, nor in the Holocaust. He was, in the eyes of the Allies, more of a grotesque curiosity than a real threat. Still, He was imprisoned for a time in an American internment camp. His health, however, was collapsing. Years of obesity, poor lifestyle, and possibly even exposure to his own drugs had taken their toll. By 1947, his condition was so bad that the Americans transferred him to a hospital. He suffered from arteriosclerosis, obesity, and had lost much of his memory. He reportedly struggled to recognize people and at times drifted in and out of lucidity. Here's the tragic irony. The man who had kept Hitler alive with daily injections was now incapable of surviving without medical care himself. Morell never returned to private practice. His reputation was utterly destroyed. Other doctors despised him, calling him a quack and a charlatan. To many Germans he was remembered as the Reichsspritzenmeister, the Reich's injection master. Even in Allied records, he was often described not as a monster, but as a pathetic figure, a bloated man who had spent years enabling Hitler's drug dependency. In 1948, he was officially released from Allied custody, but he was too sick to resume a normal life. He spent his final years in a hospital bed, mentally and physically broken. On May 26, 1948, Theodor Morell died in Tegernsee, Bavaria, at the age of 61. So that's the end of his story. Or is it? Because Morell left behind something incredibly important: his personal notes and medical records of Hitler. These records revealed, in shocking detail, the sheer volume of drugs Hitler consumed. They showed how dependent he was on Morell's injections, and they have fueled decades of debate among historians. Some argue that Hitler's increasing paranoia, his irrational military orders, and his declining physical state were directly linked to Morell's treatments. Others say Hitler was already prone to such behavior, and the drugs only made things worse. Either way, Theodor Morell played a unique and disturbing role in world history. He wasn't a general commanding armies. He wasn't a politician shaping policy. He was simply a doctor with a syringe, yet his influence reached all the way to the fate of the Third Reich. And this leads to a haunting question. Was Hitler's downfall partly caused by his own doctor? Think about it. A dictator who dreamed of a 1,000-year empire may have been undermined by the very man tasked with keeping him alive. Instead of guiding him toward rational health, Morell injected him with dangerous substances that clouded his judgment and destroyed his body. It's almost poetic. The mighty Fuhrer, feared across Europe, may have been reduced to a trembling, erratic wreck, not just by Allied bombs or Soviet armies, but by the constant needle of his personal physician. The story of Theodor Morell reminds us of the dangers of blind loyalty and unchecked power. Hitler trusted him implicitly. Morell had the courage, or perhaps the recklessness, to inject the most powerful man in Germany with anything he saw fit, and nobody dared stop him. In the end, it didn't just ruin Hitler, it ruined Morell too. From a successful doctor in Berlin to a broken man who died forgotten in a Bavarian hospital. So, what happened to Hitler's personal doctor after World War II? He escaped execution, avoided trial, but lived just long enough to see his name forever stained in history. Theodor Morell, the doctor who shot up Hitler with everything from vitamins to meth, died sick, discredited, and disgraced in 1948. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into one of the strangest corners of World War II history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next story.